In this lecture, we are going to talk about the first physical media that is used for communication, and that is the coaxial cable. A lot of us rely on wireless networking methods that work using technologies like radio frequency and infrared, but even wireless depends on a physical media backbone in place somewhere. And the majority of installed local area networks today communicate via some kind of cabling. So now let us have a look at the three basic types of popular cables used in modern networking designs. You must have heard these terms in your day-to-day life. The first one is the coaxial cable, which we're going to talk in this lecture. Then there comes the twisted pair cable, and finally the fiber optic cable, which is the most common today. So let us now talk about the coaxial cable. What is a coaxial cable? Coaxial cable, referred to as coax, contains a center conductor made of copper that's surrounded by a plastic jacket with a braided shield over it. Okay, so a center conductor made of copper, surface surrounded by a plastic jacket. A plastic such as polyvinyl chloride, that is a PVC, or fluoroethylene propylene, that is FEP, commonly known as Teflon, covers this metal shield. The Teflon type covering is frequently referred to as platinum rated coating, and it's definitely expensive but often mandated by a local or municipal fire code when cable is hidden in walls and ceilings. Platinum rating applies to all types of cabling and is an approved replacement for all other compositions of cable sheathing and insulation like PVC based assemblies. The difference between platinum and non-platinum cable comes down to how each cable is used and where it is used. Now, many large multi-story buildings are designed to circulate air through the spaces between the ceiling of one story and the floor of the next. You know this, right? Now, this space between the floors is referred to as the plenum, and it just happens to be a perfect spot to run all the cables that connect the legions of computers that live in that building. So unless there's a fire, if that happens by any chance, the non-plenum cable becomes a serious hazard, because the non-plenum cable is insulation gives off poisonous smoke that gets circulated throughout the whole building. Plus, non-plenum cables can actually become wicks for the fire because they quickly help in spreading the fire instead of avoiding it. Now, because it's a great goal to prevent towering infernos, the National Fire Protection Association, that is the NFPA, demands that cables run within the plenum have been tested and guaranteed as safe. The greatest and the best example of the coaxial cable is the Ethernet cable, that is the radio grade 58 or just RG58. You don't need to remember these codes, I'm just telling you for the purpose of information. Have a look at this picture. You can see on the screen that as I had discussed, the definition of a coaxial cable contains a center conductor made up of copper, as you can see on the screen, and the copper is surrounded by a dielectric insulator and a metallic shield surrounded by a plastic jacket. So this is the actual image of a coaxial cable. Oh, and by the way, if you use a Thinnet cable, you have got to use the BNC connectors to attach stations to the network. These are the BNC connectors that I am displaying on the screen. These are 50 ohm terminating resistors at each end. Please note that you don't have to know much about the most coax cable types in networks anymore, especially the Thinnet and the Thicknet types. These are just for informative purposes. Now you can attach a BNC connector to the cable with a crimper that looks like a weird pair of pliers. I will not go into the detail of how to attach, how to connect, how to pass the cable and all those things. The purpose of this lecture was just to get an idea of what is a coaxial cable. In the next lecture, we will talk about the twisted pair cable, and that is going to be a very interesting lecture. I will see you in the next lecture where we'll talk about the Ethernet cable descriptions and different types of twisted pair cables.